Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we talk with the New York-based Nigerian-Irish multimedia artist and musician Jesse June. Jesse discusses his move from Dublin to Queens, the logistics of moving, his recent single Worse, writing music and the importance of collaboration, the influence of West African music on his youth, working with District, the Irish music scene, and much more. Hey Jesse, can you hear me okay?
I think I need to change my name. Sorry.
How's it
Hello.
going?
I need to
How are
change
you?
my. I'm sweet, man. Thank you so much for hopping on. I know I just had a
Good,
look at.
absolutely.
Let me just change this. I had a look at the back and forth with you and Liam just because I haven't had the chance, but super excited to chat and yeah, get to know a bit about ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with that then. I was going to ask simply a bit about your background. I mean, kind of what's your sort of history, I guess, with
I'm
music and
curious
art in
about
general?
you. I'm curious about you, man.
You're curious about me? I'm not that interesting, but okay. What would you like to know?
But post burnout is yours, is it? Is that you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you? And when did you set this up?
2022, September.
What was the catalyst for this then?
Okay, so I was writing for other for other
Ah,
publications. I still do,
gotcha,
but I just
gotcha.
wanted a sense of editorial control
Yeah,
because
okay.
I was getting artists kind of contacting me individually, and I was like,
Yeah,
well, I'd
okay.
like to give you coverage, but I can't guarantee, coverage in these other outlets. Like, I can
Yeah.
suggest it, but I can never 100% guarantee. So I was like, well, I'll just start my own thing, kind of,
It,
where I subside my own kind of musical
it,
opinions and just listen
yeah,
to people.
nice. It's so funny. I think like creative people, I think the value in autonomy is irreplaceable.
Absolutely. No,
It's
absolutely. And I think, yeah,
irreplaceable.
I think like everyone's doing the kind of DIY thing now, and everyone's kind of self-releasing because the option is there. And I think it's the same with journalism. I mean, obviously, in a similar way, like you have to kind of have some credentials for people to take you seriously. Unfortunately, like you have to have.
Mm,
I was
yeah.
published in X publication and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But generally speaking, like you know, I think if you just want to do it, you can do it. And like web hosting's really cheap now.
Yeah.
All this equipment's really cheap. Like all the equipment they use to edit on the site is all free. So, I think it's definitely accessible. You don't need to have lots of
Yeah.
money to do it.
You just need the drive and the doing part.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And but to be fair, I was quite naive when I started this, and I think if I knew how arduous it could be at times, I probably wouldn't have done it. But
That's beauty
because
though. That's the beauty of it.
yeah, exactly. Like, once you kind of don't know, you kind of just go for it.
Yeah, amazing, amazing stuff. Yeah, love the sound of that. And yeah, there's definitely like overlaps in terms of, just having that creative freedom. Okay, we can I was super curious to know about it all because I love people just doing things. So
Well,
yeah.
let's just weave it as an actual conversation. Like, yeah, don't feel too
Yeah.
set to a formula or anything like that. Yeah, so a bit about yourself, as you mean, like what was your kind of
Yeah.
like background, I guess?
You know what's funny, Aaron? Like I moved to New York last week, right? So and my life has been very unorthodox,
Hmm.
and being here even makes it more pronounced. When people ask me this question, it's hard to summarize because um I'm an unconventional person, always have been in my life. Love music, but didn't start off as a musician. I found myself gravitating more towards entrepreneurs because those seem to be the people that broke the status quo in your own way. You know what I mean? In my
Hmm.
in my mind. So they kind of were like the people who really weren't academic, really didn't have the the pathway designed for them. So I kind of like started off with some entrepreneurial endeavors, but funny enough, it was like events, which was inspired by, because there was no music that I liked in the area, you know what I mean? And I just wanted to, me and my friend wanted to start doing events that played our music. And then it kind of went to making t-shirts. And even those t-shirts were like artists that I like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then it went on to music management. So in hindsight, I love music all throughout. I just never saw myself being an artist. I play drums and play guitar. And then eventually I think the typical, you go through a breakup or you go through like a hard time. I think I was in Germany once by myself when I was living there. I was around 18 just because I wanted to leave Ireland. I really wanted to get out of Ireland. So I moved to Germany unprepared, kind of similar to what you said, didn't know how difficult it was going to be until kind
Yeah.
of I made the leap. And I felt like that was, I guess, a formative time in my life because I felt like I was stuck and and didn't really know where I was going in life. So I kind of gravitated to a lot. I started writing a lot, and my phone broke actually, and I had no phone for months. I would just literally like, and I loved it kind of because my mind wandered so much. I kind of like was writing all the time, and that's when I started making music, and kind of like using the freedom and also the emotional experience I was going through to kind of make music. That's all I had at the time. Um, and then it just kind of gradually, it was a hobby, and then I just started spending more and more time in this hobby instead of it being like the thing I did as a hobby. It was what I was spending most of my time on. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, I have to figure out how I can like do this if I'm going to spend as much time on it as possible. And it's been so gradual. Like it's gone from like doing it as a hobby, then immense imposter syndrome, practicing a lot, making so much bad music, um, and a lot of discovery. I think that's a beautiful thing as artists. Like the process of being artists is like this. It's self-discovery. It's a journey as well. You know what I mean? Which I
Yeah.
love. I love talking to artists because I know what this is. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. No,
as
absolutely. I think you got to get the like everyone is like some people can just be a complete savant and just like absolutely nail it out of the gate, but like a lot of people you do have to kind of you kind of have to be shit for a while and you have to kind of and that's the same with any kind of discipline, like whether
yeah.
it's writing, whether it's music or filmmaking or anything, it's like you kind of have to, but it's good to get the shit out of the way when no one's looking at you.
You know, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's one thing that actually I don't think is said enough. Um, Now I think I see that conversation being brought to the forefront a bit more, that like, no, stop expecting to be good. And it's so funny, like when I started making music, and putting it out, I was like, in my mind, I was like, this is shit. But I know because my personality, when I kind of decide I want to do something, I kind of get fixated on it. And I
Yeah.
know the kind of person I am. But I remember putting out music on SoundCloud and it was so bad, but I was like, I'm doing this so when I get good, this is there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I kind of want that's kind of like the drive, one of the major driving forces behind everything I do. I kind of want people to see that, it is a process. Like my life is very unorthodox. A lot of my life I was looked at as an idiot, to be honest. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
that's kind of I think something people who are original and people who don't follow the typical paths, they go through that looking a bit lost and looking a bit stupid. But now things are starting to kind of balance out, and I kind of want to say, hey, you know what I mean? It wasn't always this way. The proof is there. I put out shit music. I was lost. I was fucking, by myself in this place and figuring things out. I tried so many things. Um, but it's necessary. And I think people are afraid to like go through that as well. And it's fucking hard. It's
Yeah.
fucking hard. But yeah. Tangents.
Actually, some
I go on a lot of tangents.
no, no, absolutely not. Like, trust me, dude, when it comes to this is a good thing about, again, as we're kind of talking about, when you get used to doing something over and over again, I'm very good at editing everything down for an article and
Yeah,
then let the podcast for people who are interested in the actual organic flow of the interview, they can go there. So
I
I'm good at it,
see.
man. So go on as many tangents as you want, though.
Fantastic. Okay, fantastic.
One
Fantastic.
thing I want to ask you, actually, just kind of based on what you were saying, it's a conversation I've had with other artists too, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. I think now that everyone has kind of like the full autonomy, as you were saying, over their art, a lot of musicians, once they kind of get satisfied with their sound, and once they get kind of satisfied with their competency, they kind of go back and they erase their old stuff. Are you
Mm.
for that? Are you against it? Do you think it's their creative prerogative to do that, or do you feel it's kind of revisionist, or how do you feel about that?
That's a fucking great question, and it's something I grapple with. And right off the bat, I've done it with a couple of songs, just because yeah, I didn't like them. That's kind of what it comes down to. I didn't like them. There are songs that I know aren't, you know, that are beginning and are prototypes, and they will always be there. There are some that I just don't like that I'll take away. But I don't like doing it because it's funny. An artist pops off and then you click on them and then it's like they have two, three songs out and you're like, what the fuck? That's bullshit. I don't like that. It's
Mhm.
actually a great question you ask. Although I've done it with one or two tunes, my first song that I ever put out on Spotify is there. It would always be there. And set my songs on SoundCloud would always be there. I think that is the beauty of it. Now I feel like as an artist, what me and Liam Bank on and the team, just because of my personality, the people that are in the same vibe. I want them to know who we are and to know where we came from and to that's we grew up when artists were it's a journey. You grew with the artist. You know what I mean? I feel like we've lost that in a certain sense in a way because people are just trying to cater to the crowd. Whereas for me, the few people that I do know that are really supportive of me, they've been there through the start, and that's beautiful. And I kind of love the fact that we know what we came from. So I'm as much as possible. I want to keep like the map there because it's all a map for people who are going to come after, and which is something that's actually very high on like my intention doing this music thing and the creative mission, I guess.
Yeah, the other thing I think is that, like, as you grow, as you get older, as an artist and just as a person, like, some things you once created will no longer resonate with you just naturally as life changes. But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't resonate with others. And it kind of feels like you're taking something away from them if they like feel like, oh, this song that you wrote when you were like a teenager really resonates with me as I'm a teenager now. And then you just kind of go, well, I'm in my 30s now. That's no longer relevant, you know?
So what do you think about what do you usually get like answer wise from artists when you ask that question?
I actually get a lot of mixed feelings too, because some artists do kind of like take their stuff down, and then when they say, I don't know, I sometimes wonder if they feel like I'm guilt tripping them, which is not my intent. I'm just genuinely interested in the question itself, which is just, you know, um, I don't know, because like you listen to like a lot of DIY music from like from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and that's always going to be there in some weird little record label, indie label that like put out a couple of singles or whatever. But now I kind of feel like my kind of opinion is that it is your art, and to some degree you do have the right to do what you want with it, but simultaneously it also impacts other people too. And
Yeah.
for me, like, cause I have a lot of like writing, for example, and a lot of like I used to do film, and I have like a lot of stuff that I would just be embarrassed to show to people now, but I kind of keep it up there, and
Probably
you
not.
you just never know, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
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 because
it's so it's so amazing you say that because it's like there are a few songs that I took down, and even though I have a small listenership at the moment, there are people be like, where did the song go? You know what I mean?
yeah.
You know what I mean? Despite the fact that like it's so I think now I was making music yesterday and I think as an artist now, I kind of just want to take myself out of it. I think that's what I want to strive towards as much as possible. And I think that's something that great artists like execute well. Take myself out of it as much as possible and be like, okay, I'm just like a conduit to get this out and to other people. And when we look at it that way, then it's like we kind of have to take our embarrassment out of it, and you know what I mean, and think about the bigger picture. So yeah, I love the fact that your stuff up there, man. I love
Well,
that.
it's just like, you know, as you grow more, like you read more and you kind of like listen to more and you kind of get inspired by more art. And I think it's very important too to like actually kind of keep up with your contemporaries in a lot of ways. Like I think it's important to kind of know what other people are doing. Because it kind of makes you up your game too a little bit. Like, you know, like for example, I once submitted to like a literary journal and I didn't get in. I was like, I'm going to buy a copy of this journal and just read like the other
Mm,
material that did get accepted. And
wow,
I was like, shit, this is way better. Okay. Like, and
wow.
you know what, man, it kind of takes the sting out
What
of it a
interesting.
little bit because you kind of go like, okay, this isn't a personal thing. My stuff just legitimately
It's
wasn't up to the standards.
fair. That,
You know
that
what I
wow.
mean?
As you're saying that, I feel that in my body quite a bit because, I think as me personally, I'm constantly alternating between I'm the best artist in the world and I'm so bad. You know what I mean? Well, now I'm
Yeah.
not so bad. I know I'm decent, but oftentimes I'll just go and listen to tunes that are being playlisted, and I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a level. There are levels, and it's nice because I like striving, and it keeps you in the game, and it keeps us fucking working better and engaged and learning more and pushing ourselves and getting better, and it shows us okay, this is possible. So yeah, that's something you reading the article is like the
Yeah,
same.
you gotta do
As-
it.
I know the
Well,
feeling.
I know you write yourself, for example, like do you often feel like it's one thing like a lot of your writing is obviously very personal. It's very like it's very like, I don't know, there's just no pretenses. It's very like sincere. Do you find that that was something that was daunting to do to kind of be exposing like that, or is that just something that comes natural to you?
I would say it more comes naturally to me, to be
Yeah.
honest. But also with each time I do it, it gets strong, it gets stronger. Like so it's also definitely a muscle that has been built on, but definitely I think it's something that you see, because it's funny. I'm not like growing up, I didn't have like a tangible skill. You know what I mean? I wasn't good at maths. I wasn't like good at, but I was like maybe I had a certain level of hubris or confidence that allowed me to do many other things.
Yeah.
So there is definitely like a fundamental level of, okay, I'm gonna do it regardless, fuck everybody. But there is also a certain level of trepidation I get. But now, honestly, as re in recent time, the more and more I put up, the more music I put up, I feel I get more and more confident with each thing I put out. So now I'm at a point, and I feel like the people that do know me and have been around for a while, that's kind of like my thing. You know what I mean? I might not be. It's funny. Someone came up to me the other day, and he's been. This was during summer. Great guy, and we were just talking about the music because he's been there since I've been putting out SoundCloud, and he's somebody really really honest, and he was like, your music was trash and now it's better, but he was like, you're just the most trans honest out of all the artists in that I would know in Ireland, and that's fundamentally that's what I want to pinpoint in terms of skill set and capabilities. I know those things can be worked on and improved, like we just said,
Hmm.
but there's a certain level of like honesty and rawness that I think um I build everything else on. So great question actually. Yeah, so I would say a part of it is natural, but I've definitely built on it as I've put out stuff.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think sincerity is more important for art than competency in the field. I would much rather someone, I don't know, like illustrate something that was like actually pressing to them rather than make something of high quality that's perfunctory or insincere, you know?
Mm. And how do you feel then in terms of the landscape now,
Yeah.
musically? How do you feel about that?
Well, actually, I think it's kind of gone the opposite way, where I feel like now every musician I see, because I go to like a lot of like local shows and stuff, and I find like when I was a teenager, I used to be like playing in bands and stuff, and we were shit. But every other band on the scene was shit because everyone else was just like a teenager just picking up guitar and bass and drums for the first time. So, you get stuff that was out of rhythm, you get stuff that was out of sync, you
Yeah.
get vocalists who couldn't sing very well. But again, it was just that thing where it's like, just keep doing it, just keep doing it, you'll get good. And eventually a lot of those artists did get good. But now I feel like because people are so well trained and so well versed, and because people, have like because there's such like a baseline equality now that I don't know, I feel like if I was a teenager now, I'd feel somewhat excluded from starting music.
That's I see what you mean.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, right? Because like I I play a bit of guitar and I played a bit of drums, but I'm nowhere near as good as the people I work with, right? Musically, right?
Yeah.
Musically. And there's a certain I do want to get better at my instrument and technically, but there's also a part of me that doesn't want to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because and I'm sure you can understand why, because you get too good, you get a bit it gets a bit too restrictive and it gets a bit too formulaic. I kind of like getting onto a track and just crying on the song. I don't care about the structure. I don't care about, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then you can like put it together. So it's so interesting you say that. Fuck. I'm feeling bad for the kids that are like you that hopefully that
Yeah.
hopefully too intimidated to start. Because that's
No,
me.
actually, well, I think like I think a good thing is like a marriage between people who are unskilled and people who are just kind of like you said, just being like very raw and emotive and just trying to express something,
Yeah.
kind of teaming up with the people who do understand like music theory and do understand here's how we can kind of elevate this material. I think that's like a perfect kind of marriage in my mind.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And t again, took I think it took us a while to realize that with my team. It's so funny. Like with the guys I work with, fucking love those guys. Zach, Connor, Steve, Will, a few really amazing technical like geniuses, with music. And at the start, like they were, which is the kind of person I am. I like straight feedback and they gave me that. And initially, like they used to pick fun at me because like, you know, I wasn't the technical person. But I think over time, as I've improved, um, I've improved and also found a way how to channel, the emotion more. I think now they've that's really been tangible, like that marriage between okay, you're tech, they know okay, you're technical. And I know, okay, Jesse's going to bring this. And so, yeah, I think that's like, and it happened by accident. It was a sweet accident. But I think that's kind of like, I'm embracing that now. Before I was like, oh no, I can't do this. And I don't really know the chord progressions. I'm just kind of playing. But now I see there's a beauty in that. Like
Yeah.
I was making a song with one of my friends, Connor, who produced that Worse. And I was singing this line and the way I sang it, I don't know, it's just like a very raw line, you know what I mean? That maybe he wouldn't come across. And initially he was like, oh, that can't go in the song. But I was just stubborn. It felt so right to me. I was like, no, this feels right. I just kept singing it that way. And then at the end, I got out of the studio and we started listening to it, and he was like, okay. It feels right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your mind is thinking like, okay, this is supposed to be this, and my mind doesn't have those parameters. So it's like the loveliest partnership. I kind of like working with people like that.
My anxiety about kind of getting competent at music in terms of like learning music theory, actually knowing what the hell I'm talking about is, and I don't know if you understand this or if you'd agree with this, but like my kind of fear is that it would sort of ruin the inherent mystique of music and it would just become like matrix code, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, dude. As you're saying that, I'm feeling like the goose. Like I feel it. I feel that so deeply,
Yeah.
and I agree. And I think like it's necessary to have artists that are just kind of like you know what I mean? Whatever
Yeah.
we go where and I don't know. You saying that is I do want to learn a bit more, but I definitely don't have any aspiration to be like fucking. That would definitely make me too. And they people they need us.
Yeah.
People need us, whether it's people who are incredibly technical or whether it's um people who like art. We need because what is it like at the end of the day? It's expression, it's emotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything else is a tool to help us get that get that true, and we can do that with other people. as I'm realizing as well, like worse, the most recent song that Liam probably got reached out to you about, that's probably one of it's probably been one of the best received. Um, and maybe it could be argued probably the best put together. And it's because it's the most collaborative. You know what I mean? It's the most collaborative we've done. And that's because we all brought our specialness to that tune. So yeah, I think now I'm kind of realizing what you just said. It's don't need to get expert level genius. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, actually, let's talk about Worst Thing because you brought it up there. Yeah, it came out November 8th, and it's your most recent single today. One thing I think what I really like about your music is actually the kind of incorporation of the instruments. I think on this song in particular, the bass line is very crucial to the backbone of the whole thing. I was wondering like how you kind of like what your songwriting process is in terms of like incorporating the different instruments. Obviously you mentioned it's collaborative, so are you kind of like allowing people to do their own thing, or where do you kind of start from, I guess, when you're structuring a song for your project?
So there's a lot of different ways, and you know, like me and the team, we're still, I don't know about yourself, I'd actually be curious to know. We're
Mhm.
very much, the aspiration is to make art all the time, you know what I mean? And to hopefully, that's the aspiration for me. As of now, we're still working in between our jobs and still working in between our lives. So the way we make music is very much however we can. If it's a matter of me writing a song to a melody and sending it on and it being built, that's one way. Or if it's us being in the studio and writing the chords down and then me taking it away. Um it's a variety. For worse, I actually remember the day quite well because I was so fucking tired in the studio and I was like not leading that session. Connor, my producer, who's produced a lot of the tunes out right now, he just started playing the chord progression, and I think it was during a breakup, my most recent breakup. And I write often, so I usually have like sentiments in my mind that have been there. And that was one that actually came relatively easy in terms of the writing process. Connor wrote it out because I feel like Connor is an engineer, right? A software engineer and an actual like producer. So his mind oftentimes is like super technical. But that time, because I think I was more lax and he was just like chilling out, he just played, just he didn't feel pressure. He just played the chords. Usually when I'm in the studio, and it's one of the reasons why there's so many genres. I never say, "Hey, let's make a rap tune or let's make a tune." I just say, "Hey, what are we feeling today?" You know what I mean? And I was obviously feeling worse from that relationship, and he wrote the chords. I think I took it away, wrote the tune. Very fucking. I think like that was an easy one to write. Very easy one to write. And then wrote the tune, sent it to Zach, who is my longest collaborator, and he's like an engineer and also producer. He loved the tune, but he always doesn't have time to work on it. So I brought it to Will, who is a film composer from Sydney, who produced one of my other songs yesterday. Will produced it, but he's not actually like he's a film composer, right? So it's kind of like it's not the same. It's not ideally the same language. So he produced it. I'm happy. I was relatively happy with it. So I sent it to Zach and Connor, and you're really harsh on me, right? Which I like. The standards are high, and they're like, this is the first time where the production is actually letting the songwriting down. Um, and so Zach was like, okay, I have to get involved in this. So he then took it, and at those points we had the fundamental pieces. We had the guitar, I think we had a rough bass line, we had the synths, but Zach then he then I think redid the bass line. He actually texted me because there's another article I think that mentioned someone else did the bass line, but he was like, I did the bass line in one take, and I really want people to know that. And it's a fucking great bass line. Like
Yeah, yeah, it is. It really is. It's like I think it really is the backbone of the song, in my opinion.
right.
Yeah.
It's no, he absolutely smashed it. Zach is awesome. And then Connor the synths was a big. We went back and forth with the synths and kind of how it was structured. I love what a good question, man. I love talking about this stuff. Um, and
Thank you.
yeah, man. And so it was very like this one was beautifully collaborative. So Connor kind of produced the essence of the song, then Zach kind of went in and did the like actual the main pieces really gelled together, kind of mixed it and then kind of co-produced it. And musically, it depends. Sometimes I'm not the best at guitar. Sometimes I'll send them rough melodies or chord progressions or song ideas. This one, Connor wrote the music, like the melody, Zach and produced it. Zach kind of co-produced it.
To kind of go back like on kind of your musical background. So like, you know, obviously you're talking about the diversity of styles in your music. I mean, what was your kind of like background in music? Did you come from a musical household? Was it all self-taught, self-learned stuff you discovered on your own? How much of it was kind of an incorporation of maybe what you were hearing at home, hearing, you know, in school or anything like that? And how much of it was just like, here's the stuff I'm discovering on my own?
Yeah, lovely question, man. Lovely question. Um, so like this is I'm so excited, hopefully to get bigger because it's a very unorthodox story, but there are people I know like me in my shoes. I was born in Nigeria, right? So
Mhm.
fundamentally that like without knowing, knowingly or unknowingly, that gives me a certain level of musical range again, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
from being there. And my dad loved music. Like I remember being a kid. I don't have a lot of memories from being really young, but I remember he had like big, like cassette, like CDs upon CDs upon CDs, and he would DJ at parties. So that was like baby. So probably was absorbing music when I was younger. And then when we moved to Ireland, my brother was is he's a computer scientist, so he's like he was always super ahead of the curve in terms of like LimeWire and like
yeah,
torrenting music. So I remember, and he was a big Apple fan. So I remember like being super young and having thousands of albums on the iPod, and like we wouldn't have been able to afford it. We were kids, but my brother was just
yeah,
able
of
to
course.
get that. So that looking back on it, that was formative. My brother probably set the tone of just the range because he's quite an eclectic person. We often joke that like everything I do is kind of like from him.
Yeah.
Um, and there was like I remember there was Justin Timberlake, there was Kanye, there was Red Hot Chili Peppers, there was, you know, a lot of bands, there was Muse. So there was like a wide range, plus the fact I'm Nigerian as well. Uh, Um, and then I went, my mom is amazing. She put me and my brother, all of us and my sister, all of us in music lessons. I took the best to it, I think. Um, because I think I had a certain level of musicality in me. Not I didn't excel to any great heights, but I did like was in a band in school and played guitar. I just kept with it. It was in and around my life all through. And then I was in a band, the school I went to, it was like they had great musical resources. They had like music rooms, they had a drum kit, which was nice. They had opportunities for kids, for the students to perform in the assembly like every week and talent shows. So the performances kind of because I played drums, a lot of people from the different years would ask me to play drums for them. So they're like pulling me in and I don't, they're like, can you play the song for us? I don't know the song, so that has now introduced me to a different genre of music. Um, so growing up, I think exposure, I was exposed to a lot, which was really formative. And I think my personality as well allowed it to really marinate within me. So I was exposed to a lot because I'm a sensitive person. I find that I can feel the genres because that's what music is, you know, fundamentally. It's just an emotion. It's emotions I feel. Um, and as I've grown more and become more open and realized I'm an artist, it's just like, okay, I want to hear all different types and just kind of again built upon that even more. Um, which is again, I think a fundamental thing now that I'm realizing that the team is realizing that is core for what we want to do, the range. Um, because it comes naturally. I find it weird to think about people who have one sound. I find that impossible to comprehend. I can't do that. Maybe it's because I haven't found my sound yet, but I don't know if I ever will find a sound that I want to do forever. Maybe like for a particular project or something, but I don't know because it's emotion. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I want to cry over a fucking guitar chord. Sometimes I want to rap. I'm feeling confident and I want to rap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so I think I don't know if that answers the question.
No, absolutely. That was great. And I mean, like, I think like now we're actually like just seeing, I think, a complete dissolvement of genre, and I think that's great.
Yeah,
Like, people are just, I think, and again, I think it goes back to what we're kind of talking about with autonomy, where it's like you don't have
yeah,
any more people or a label kind of breathing over your neck going, no, it has to be this. This is what's popular right now. You can kind of just, it can just be kind of organic expression in the sense that like you
Mm,
go and one thing I think is really nice and is that like you're seeing like lineups now, like local bills where it's like we're gonna put on 3 to 5 local acts and it's just like a complete it's a complete diverse range. I think it's making
yeah.
music a lot more interesting. It's making art more interesting.
Yeah, as you say that now, I'm thinking about to lineups. Even you can even see it within lineups actually, which has been like gradually happening.
Yeah.
You're becoming a bit more like diverse. They are, and that's something that I think, yeah, is yeah. I'm grateful for where music is going because yeah, we have a certain level of autonomy. People from all different types have a chance to put out music, and it's definitely something that I think we want to lean into.
Yeah. No, actually, one thing I'm interested in based on that kind of like background you were giving there is you were mentioning like getting songs from like LimeWire and stuff. And, I remember like in the 2000s, like, the big like campaigns against like, first it was Napster and then it became LimeWire and it became BearShare and all these like places. But that's where
Pirate
every
Bay.
kid was getting their music because like, but what I think is really interesting about piracy is that it is kind of getting art into markets that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity because even in places where albums are distributed by major labels, like I'm thinking like Eastern Europe and South America and parts of Asia, like
Yeah,
like and definitely the Middle East, like it's really inaccessible. It's prohibitively expensive.
yeah,
So, it's like, well, at least people are actually enjoying your music. I remember
yeah.
there was this documentary, I think it was Vice put out years ago. It was about this metal band in Tehran, in Iran, and they were like, yeah, we just like, we started listening to Metallica and stuff because of piracy. And then and System of a Down and all this, and they just kind of started a metal band that otherwise wouldn't have been able to exist because like the music just wasn't really distributed there.
Well, there. It's necessary. It's necessary. It's a tough one, right? Because artists need to get paid. But if it's like I remember reading this book about like this author, and he did it with his book. He was like, I want people to pay for my book, but if you really can't afford it, let me know and I'll get it to you for free.
Yeah,
Because at the end of the day, like we want as many people to fucking, you know what I mean? It's unfortunate that like money is a part of the world and that's as of now, that's necessary. But like I don't care. I just want people who can hopefully feel what I feel to feel what I feel and get that to as many people as possible.
yeah.
I think that's what I care about. Like one of my friends, I think now that I've moved to New York, one of my friends texted me, they're like, don't forget me when you're famous. I was like, I don't want to be famous. Like, I just want people to listen to my music. I just want people that it will resonate with to listen to it. So it kind of touches on what you're talking about. I don't care if they fucking pirate it. I don't just listen to my music. I'll never lose that. Like I'll never lose that. And I never want to lose. I'm talking now like I know what's gonna happen, but I never want to lose. I just want people to, because even now, right? I'm not massive by any means, but I think the numbers thing, I hate that. I hate the
Yeah.
numbers thing with music. I fucking hate that.
Dude, I'll
Um,
tell you, like, for from someone who's working like in like music, sorry, in music journalism, it's like some publications, I won't name names, but some publications, if a PR company or something reaches out about doing like coverage, it's kind of like, well, how many followers do they have? It's this kind of like numbers game thing
really,
you're talking about, and I kind of
it,
feel like my opinion was always that like big publications absolutely put the biggest artists on your cover to get people to buy the magazine or to click on your site, but then kind of Trojan horse in the newer acts, you know what I mean, give them the
ah,
exposure. I think that's a great thing to do.
yeah, yeah, and it's happening. I love these conversations, which I appreciate with you and a few people in Dublin as well. Like the district have been massive. Like what they did is amazing. by putting, especially at that point in time, maybe next time, that was the start of the year. I think they reached out to us for a future of Irish music after that song. So those are people that like obviously just cared about
Yeah.
the core fundamentals. Um, but even to just to finish off, it's like seeing one. I never want to lose the gratitude I feel from just one person listening to my music or two
Yeah.
people. That's massive. Like that. I'm liking it and enjoying it and feeling what I felt. It's a that is the dream. That is the dream. I want to be able to like do that as much as possible. I don't really care what happens, like to be honest. I just want to be able to make music and it compellingly so people can feel what we feel and hopefully can feel the emotion that is trying to be conveyed. The numbers thing, but now, funny enough though, now now I think I'm being a bit less romantic. I think I want to be a bit less romantic with um the promotional aspect of it because I've just identified that that is so like what you're saying to me now, the numbers thing, that's just so not in my head. Like people are
Mhm.
thinking about, like the followers, but that's also me being a bit naive, you know what I mean, as
Yeah.
well. So I think now if I'm to be a bit like actually, okay, what can I do to give the music the best opportunity to be seen? And that is being, I think, a bit more vocal about the work we're doing. And I think that's a nice place I'm getting to now. Now I feel like we have a decent amount of songs out and there's a bit more there. We've kind of like, broken a few eggs when no one was looking type stuff,
Yeah.
like you said. So it's a balance though. It's a balance.
Before I talk about your move to New York, which I want to get onto, I just want to quickly just talk about your time in the Dublin music scene. So one thing I think is very interesting is that just in terms of like we're talking about obviously musical diversity too, but I think like recently you're seeing like a lot of cultural diversity too. You're seeing like people bringing you were talking about like kind of the influence of West African music and art in your music, and also you see a lot from like people coming from South America and people coming from Asia. They're really just incorporating those elements into kind of modern pop music, modern rock music, whatever genre they're doing. They're just these like little incorporations. And what I actually think is interesting too is that they're also blending in aspects of like Irish trad and Irish folk music and stuff. And I think it's this really like interesting thing where I think that's also expanding music too. I think what's interesting about
Yeah.
Dublin is that even though you kind of have people from pretty much every kind of corner of the world to some capacity, it's still such a small city that it doesn't feel it doesn't feel divided by district. It feels like everyone's kind of going to the same clubs and playing the same
Well
music.
said. Well,
So, yeah.
well fucking said. That's a great observation.
Yeah.
That's a
But
great
was that your
observation.
experience, or did you find
No,
like you
no,
were kind of
no.
getting culturally
That's,
enriched?
that's absolutely spot on. It's a great observation to make, actually. Um, and I feel like I don't know over the last year or so, no, for a while, but like over the last year especially, I've been saying to people, Ireland is going to be one of the most important places in terms of I feel like there's a creative shift happening in the world.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be one of the most important places, and I think it can be one of the most fruitful places for unique artists because of what you just said. Because of what you just said. It's underrated in terms of just like how eclectic the place is, right? And I feel like because Ireland is relatively small, and although like Ireland has an incredible list of historical absolute geniuses creatively, I still feel like Irish people we pick up we look outside for a lot of things. We import a lot
Yeah.
of culture
Absolutely.
mixed with our culture. So I find like Irish artists and people are some of the most eclectic people I've met in the world. Just because other cultures, like you said, they are in their own bubble. They're too insular because they have a big community. They don't have the need to go and research and to taste the English culture, to taste the American culture. Think about it. English people, they're just in their kind of bubble. They have a big enough bubble to be in. Americans, they have a big enough bubble to be in. Ireland, I don't know if we do, which a lot of people say is a bad thing, but I actually think there is a flip side where that's a massive strength. We see, look, and that's not just in music. I think that's in every creative avenue. Look at
Yeah.
fucking Gladiator. It's Paul Mescal. Look at
Yeah.
Barry Keoghan and what they're doing. Cillian Murphy. These are the biggest roles in the world because Irish people, we just have a certain range. We have a certain level of like emotional tone, emotional range, a taste that I feel very few places can compete with. And again, what you said, it touches on that. In Ireland, like here, being in New York briefly, okay, there is Manhattan, and that's kind of like the nicer area. Then there's like you can very much stay in your bubble. Whereas in
Mhm.
Dublin, everyone mixes with each other, like regardless, just by default, which I think, which is one of the reasons I moved here because I'm like, that's so fucking valuable. I think that's so valuable, especially as someone who, as people who are in an industry where what is the value? Perspective is one of the most valuable things in the creative industry. The more unique your perspective is, the more flavors you have, the more things you can, connections you can make. That's what makes great artists great artists. And I feel like Irish people are like gifted that. And then on top of like our history, our values, our humor, our taste. Um, yeah, and it's beautiful because like sometimes I make these statements and I look crazy, but like Paul Mescal, like being Gladiator is a huge thing. Fucking Ireland and Cillian Murphy winning best first Irish actor to win an Oscar. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's a massive tide happening musically as well. Fontaines, I think they're probably going to win the Grammy for best rock album. I hope they do. I feel like they will. So there's just a massive tide I feel right now, and I want Irish people to really just really understand the value they carry and the impact we can have like yeah with those gifts, I think.
Do you think abroad there's a sense of Irish music being a particular thing, or do you think that's kind of expanding too? Like, for example, I know you're saying like you're only in the US a little while, but for example, we would think that kind of Irish Americans would have a certain expectation when they listen to Irish music. I was thinking actually recently there's a new kind of trad band who are really blown up here, the Merry Wallopers, who are taking kind of Irish traditional music and folk and Sean and are really trying to paint a more accurate picture of Ireland, including like the aspects of our history that we don't really like Magdalene Laundries, like things like that, sex abuse scandals and all these kind of issues. They're incorporating that into it, and I think it's kind of a good Trojan horse to people who have kind of a romantic vision of Ireland to kind of get them to check it out and then just kind of like kind of punch them with the reality.
Yeah, yeah, that's how you get them. That's how you get them. I think you know what, like, and that's the beauty of Ireland because there's so much range, and I don't think so. Now the question I'm thinking of, okay, it's like, do I think people know this scope of Irish music? No, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't think people have a clue. That's the thing. I don't think people have a clue as to just how much talent are there. If I had a record label, I would just go to Ireland for like a month and just like go to every event I can and look for artists and be like, okay, it's a gold mine for artists, I find. Um, just because of the nature of the artist. I feel like now, hopefully, like, and it's a dream of mine. I want to get to a point where I can just be like, okay, I have a certain level of voice. I'm just gonna just fucking shine a light onto Irish people, like because they're there. Irish artists are there. Great Irish artists who have a unique voice, a unique story that the world has never seen, a genuine voice, sincere. Um, I don't think people, it's changing now, which is beautiful, but I still don't think people have any like the scope is I don't think they've really digested the level. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Ireland, actually. Incredibly excited.
I want to talk then about your move to New York. So, yeah, just in general, I mean, was it something that was like really preconceived that you're going to go to New York? You had kind of like the plans of what you're going to do there, or was it just kind of like more on the whim? How kind of like meditated, how premeditated was it?
Oh, dude, no, I've wanted to move for a while. Like since and I've wanted to move for a while, right? That's kind of why I ended up in Germany in 2018 because I just wanted to move out of Ireland. You know what I mean? I grew
Yeah.
up there. Like for all my life. So I just wanted to move because I was always quite like a driven person, and I just wanted to put myself in the place that I could most likely succeed. It didn't happen because it's supposed to happen now. It's funny now because if it happened previous times, I wasn't, my vision wasn't as clear. I wasn't as confident in who I was. So I always wanted to go over the last 2 years, or no, 3 or 4 years or so. It's been more crystallized. Like, okay, it's going to be New York. It's one of those things like you throw out verbally or mentally. You have no idea how it's going to happen, but you kind of just keep saying it and keep saying it and then and then you kind of like, up until the day I was leaving, man, I was like, okay, I think I'm moving to New York, but I don't know, I don't know, you know what I mean? So it was definitely a big dream, and being here is, I feel like it increases the volume on my megaphone to be like, this is what's possible. You know what I mean? Like, this is what's possible. I love Ireland, like with my core. I would never change anything. I fucking love it and I miss it. And talking to you is amazing. I think I need to do weekly calls with Irish people just so I can like absorb that again. But there are some fundamental truths. Like, if you want to learn how to paint, you go to Italy or you go to France. If you want to learn how to cook, sushi, you go to Japan. If you want to, learn how to act and work in film and work in music, you go to New York. Um, so it was kind of like I just wanted to put myself in a place that actually gave me a chance, because there's two ways to look at it. There are so many artists that are great in Ireland that hit a ceiling, right? You know this.
Mhm.
You're in the industry, because it's hard to leave, and it also takes a certain level of confidence and commitment and obsession to be like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes, to leave. It's not an easy thing. But secondly, to touch on what we spoke about, I also think there's a certain level of there's a certain level of we take people for granted as well, when you're in our vicinity. I actually don't think Ireland understands how valuable some of the artists there are. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
agree. I agree.
Do you,
Yeah,
do you, do you agree?
absolutely. Yeah, because like I see like some of the most like amazing acts, and then I go like see their show, and there's like, maybe 15 people or something. I'm like, oh man, this should be sold out.
So that's infuriating, and I never want to be like the person, like, because I'm not susceptible to that. I only realized this recently. Like, I'm not susceptible to like being the old bitter person. You know what I mean?
Right.
That, why didn't I fucking? I never want to do that.
Yeah.
And I never want to be that person. And I think that's something that can easily sneak up on us. Um, by being here, I think, I don't know. It's a hypothesis, but there's two ways. By being here, I give myself a better chance to be seen by more people. Just, let's just say, even the sheer number of people. But secondly, also, one of the main reasons I came here is because I want to work with the best people. That was also a big thing. And from being here, like, um, it's New York, right? So people here are here for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If that makes sense. And
absolutely.
so, uh, to answer your question, do I have a plan? My plan was being here and then winging it, getting here and absolutely, absolutely winging it. As soon as I got here, I did. I had no. Now it's like nothing. Like, I have no plan. I do have a few friends that work in the creative industry, but I plan on hopefully like doing some. Obviously, I'm going to put songs out here, and like, I have friends that work in film and videography and music and stuff like that. But this place is I don't live in the city. I live a bit out, which is nice. It reminds me of like Ireland a bit. It's more calm where I am. I'm in Queens,
Yeah.
but
Okay, cool.
it's it's nuts. I don't think it will ever settle in actually. Um, but I hope, even with my friends, like, now as I'm grown as well, I'm like, we can actually be, a lot of the people who inspire us are the people closest to us. You know what I mean? It's not always the fucking people standing on the mountain or the people in Mount Rushmore. A lot of the people I get inspiration from are people, artists. Like Jafaris is one of my biggest inspiration. Hair Squad are some of my biggest inspiration. Manjola, because those are the people that I grew up with. I literally, grew up with MJ. I went to school with Hair Squad. I went to school with these guys. So now from being here, I kind of wanted to be like, hey guys, no, don't fucking put a ceiling on your head. Like, don't be afraid. And hopefully it goes well and it only gives me a louder drum to beat and be like, hey, no, Irish people are fucking geniuses. Irish people are fucking great. Go fucking look at Ireland and have a pick of all the great people, not just from music, from every field, writers, creative people, videographers, actors. It's like, I don't know. I feel like Irish people really care
Yeah,
about it's like in us, I feel like the
absolutely.
creative tone and the creative spirit.
Yeah, I gotta
Um,
ask though about like the logistics of living in New York because this is what I'm kind of interested in. So, like New York, is like really like prohibitively expensive. Was that like a consideration when going there to kind of go, just like because I've seen like New York rental prices, and to be fair, this may be in different boroughs, so this might be Manhattan prices. I'm not exactly sure, but going for like 5 grand a month and shit.
yeah.
Was that like logistic concerns for you, like in terms of just being actually able to live there? Was that something you had to kind of make the plans for, and just in general things like visas and all that? Like, how long term are you planning in terms of?
Great question, right? And me and Liam are planning on doing a end of year roundup where we actually talk about this because we've realized that um the whole reason we're doing this is to do it, obviously, because this is what we're compelled to do, but also to show people how to do it, to like the actual real life level. Because I feel like when you're on social media, there can be a certain level of distance and mystique between like how are people doing it, and there's no like people get a certain temptation to like hold the cards to your chest and like not tell it's fucking bullshit. No, empower people.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you've now asked me a fantastic question, right? And it touches on why it touches on the whole like enigmatic aspect, I think, of what we're doing. So right now I'm on a grad visa, right? So I didn't go to college straight away. This ties into my whole life, right? I didn't go to college straight away. I dropped out of college 3 times. Um and
What were you
never
studying?
business each time, like
Okay, cool.
businessy courses. And I dropped out each time. And then, but I always wanted to move, right? So I was like, okay, I know that there's a visa you can get if you're a graduate, right? So I was like, I'm going to go to college. It's so funny saying doing it now and being here now because when I said this, people were like, what are you on about? The only reason I went to college was to move to New York.
Mm,
So I went there when I was not late, but like later than average. I think I finished college last year at 25.
mm.
So I finished, and then you're eligible for like a visa to move to anywhere in New York and work for I think 14 months. So finished college, kind of then worked jobs, try to save like in and out of like took some time to work on creative pursuits. So I kind of have like a foundation. It's kind of cool talking back at it because it kind of worked. So I was like, okay, let me I was like I was like, okay.
This is the plan to follow. This is the blueprint.
This I was like, I took a job right after college. I didn't work during college. It was great. It was my only time my mom would let me live in the house, like, and not have a job because I was a student.
Yeah.
So after I finished college, I got like a job close to my house, literally a 9 to 5 working in a phone shop. But I did that because it wasn't mentally taxing and I could still work on my creative aspect. It's funny, a lot of the films I made since then were like written in the phone shop when I worked there. And then I quit. um just so I was like, okay, I'm moving to New York. I want to be able to move to New York with catalog, you know what I mean? With at least something to show people, other creative people that, hey, I'm working, I'm creative. So we kind of, me and Liam and the team kind of like started working towards certain projects. There was a lot of serendipity involved. A lot of things worked out. District, that district opportunity was great. The goal for this year was just to actually show people that I'm an artist. Prior to this year, people in my circle did not know I was like a creative person. So then I was like, I need to get a job to afford to do this, right? Because there is a certain level of expenditure involved, but it's definitely over exaggerated though, for
Okay.
sure. It's 100% over exaggerated. Like, especially coming from Dublin, man. Like, it's diff if you're moving from like fucking Portugal or you're moving from like Croatia to New York, that's a big gap. But we're
Yeah.
moving from Dublin. I pay less than probably a lot of people right now for my rent. You know what I mean? And I live in New York. So it's like, so there's a things are marginally, maybe marginally expensive, which is fine because I live in fucking New York. It's not like
Yeah.
there's a certain, so what's the value of that? You know what I mean? Like, especially if I can come here and automatically the scale of everything is increased in terms of what I make, the opportunities, everything is increased. So if people money should not be what prevents people from coming here. It's that's just all sensationalized stuff. There's definitely affordable ways to do it. But you do need to get like a job. So the visa I'm on, you need to get a job. So I actually have some interviews, and that's the thing, right? Now I need to find ways to fund my music and also find a way to stay here. Um, which is also a mission that I need to like work, which is possible. Like there are other visas you can like hop onto and stuff like that and get sponsored. It's not easy, but it's possible. So a lot of my approach is definitely like winging it, to be honest. um
No, that's fair, man. I mean, I think that's like, like I don't know, I think like if everyone's being honest with themselves, we're all just kind of winging it. People can have these like master plans and shit, but like,
mm,
eventually you just kind of I don't know, eventually just life is just so random and arbitrary
mm.
that's like, you have to just kind of bend to the entropy of life.
Exactly. Like it's funny, right? Because like having any sense of like absolute security is an illusion.
Yeah.
It's an absolute illusion. It's like I saw this wonderful there's this wonderful documentary with Jonah Hill and a guy called Schultz. It's like confidence is confidence is being okay in times of uncertainty. Like
Yeah.
and that's all life is. It's completely
That's a great
unpredictable.
quote, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what life is like. I have no fucking clue what's gonna happen. I have no clue. I don't know what kind of job I'm gonna get. I don't know what kind of creative people I'm gonna meet. But
If
trust me,
anyone was honest with themselves, they would say the same.
you know what I mean? It's so funny.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
um being but and that's the thing. I love the journey. I love that. I think that's a part of me as an artist. I've also realized that I don't like monotony. Like I have to work for like my jobs are the things that fund music and stuff like that. Um, but and that's I think why we're creative people. We like the exploration. We like the adventure. We lean into it. That is the essence of life. Being here is a massive thing because my dude, like I got 260 points in my leaving, sir. I was not good. I was not good at anything. I was not sporty. I was not inclined in any way. I was written off in many in every facet. You know what I mean? Because think about it. Now it's cool when I'm interviewing for jobs and stuff like that, or when I'm doing like interviews. People are, to say I dropped out of college 3 times. It's like a cool story, right? It's cool to say, oh, but at the time, I was like fucking lost and crying, and all my
Yeah.
mates were like in college. You know what I mean? Um, but it made me who I am today, and it's now like a differentiating factor. I feel like makes me a human. The fact that I wasn't like in that system, I think helped me preserve a bit of my essence as well. Um, so I'm just always betting on like chance and like serendipity and shit like that. Yeah.
Do you think the education system, whether it's second level education or third level education, kind of puts too much emphasis on people's self-worth?
You're gonna fucking trigger me, my guy. You're gonna
No,
you're
no,
gonna
no, and I can relate too because I was not a good student and I had that very well. Actually, I was good at Spanish. That was like my one good subject, but like everything else, I was kind of just like keep my head above water. And then but I kind of felt like when I did my leaving cert, I was like, fuck, I'm completely fucked. This is like not good. And then but you find avenues. I don't know how to explain it, and I know that's not a very satisfactory answer for people who are kind of in it at the moment, where it's like no, things do kind of like it like through kind of necessity, you do kind of just find avenues. Eventually you can get kind of complacent and comfortable, but at some point you are going to just out of human nature, you're just going to kind of take the bull by the horns a bit.
facts. Like maybe it's a conversation for another day, but that's kind of I think when everything is kind of traced, a lot of things are traced back to our past and who we were when we were kids. I never want people to see me and think that shit was easy for me. My dude, like it's funny. My whole life was being told I was stupid, a stupid person, a dumb person. That's what school inculcated in me, and people like me. I was just lucky because I had a certain level of whether it was hubris, delusion, that I was kind of like, nah, fuck you guys. I don't think so. And then I had some successes when I was young that gave me a bit of actually massive, that were formative, that were like, oh wait, no, okay. So I kind of I'm correct that I'm not dumb. So for me, I have a massive vendetta because I was lucky. My mom exposed me to a lot. I had a certain that was my strength, being a bit of a contrarian. But there's so many people who are maybe slightly more timid that may not have that pathway, and but school is telling them you're dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's
That
awful. Yeah,
and man, like this is like my mission statement in my heart because like um the amount of great people, the amount of great people, friends I know that were kind of just left out to dry. It's 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 infuriating. It's infuriating, and it's something that that's kind of I always want to emphasize. No, I never I always wanted to get a certain level to a certain place before I told people what I got in my leaving cert. Now being in New York, like despite the odds, despite that, I feel like I can kind of like start telling people because I failed maths. I failed maths in my leaving cert,
mm.
right? I remember like being in school, people were like, if
I'm
you
sorry, just for those who might be listening don't know, like for the leaving cert, it's like maths, English, and Irish are like the three important
yeah,
subjects everyone has to pass to get into third level.
if you fail that, your life is over, is the
Yeah,
propaganda that they tell you.
yeah,
I'm telling you now, Aaron, this some of the opportunities that I've gotten, fuck the future ones. Just where I am now, I'm not supposed to be here according to what people told me. I've
yeah,
gone up, I've because it's fuck you to
mm,
everyone telling me that shit. Fuck, are you stupid? You're trying to tell me what I can and can't do
yeah,
because for some reason, and it's I don't even want to attack anyone. It's kind of like the propaganda that the people that are teaching have been taught. So it's just perpetuating itself. It needs to be broken. And that's kind of like the mission. I kind of want to go as far as I can so I can show people, hey, I was actually like a failure, like
yeah.
for like finger quotations.
Sure, I know what you mean. Yeah, your music actually touched on that. I mean, obviously with like Sunshine and Rain, I think is a really great example of that, where it's like, you're just really just it's so sincere. It's just like you're just talking about feeling broke and feeling lost, and then, but metamorphoses do happen, and look at you now. I mean, like I think that this is what I talk about when I talk about like the impact you could be having on younger generations, is that even just by leading by example, just living your life, regardless
Yeah.
of whether you become like a big stadium actor or whatever, it's like, well,
Yeah.
I'm still doing it. I'm still out here doing it. And like you're saying,
Yeah.
like, money isn't the barrier that we're again sort of taught it is, and education isn't a barrier that we're taught it is,
Bingo. 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 And these are all things used to disempower people. I never believe in that. I only
Yeah.
believe in empowering people, empowering people, empowering people because
Do
it's
you think
bullshit.
that's that propaganda is sort of perpetuated as a means of keeping people in their station, not getting people beyond kind of what they think is feasible, because that's just kind of what you know quote unquote keeps society running, is to have people in low ends.
Oh man, like uh, what you said, and Sunshine and Rain is a good one to reference because I do remember, like I'm lucky. I don't tend to stay sad for too long. I tend to bounce back. I have good bounce back ability.
Yeah,
Um, but I remember being like, when I dropped out of school, I remember being like 18 or 19 and feeling the lowest I've ever felt, even up till now, because I was just lost. Didn't have a map. Didn't have a map. You're lost. Everyone else is, it's so, you feel so isolated. Everyone is like doing this thing on this path. You know that isn't for you. You know you can't, you've tried it. You know it isn't for you, but you don't have anywhere else to go. But and the fucked up thing, Aaron, right, is that like I wasn't. I, if you met me when I was 15, I was very precocious. I was switched on. I got in
yeah,
trouble a lot in school, not because like I was petulant, but more so because I was curious and I questioned things. I was like, Probably similar to yourself. It's like I don't why, you know what I mean? Like why do we
Yeah.
need to type situation?
I find like
Um
a lot of teachers get kind of pissed off with those kind of students because there is this kind of power imbalance that they like to persist. I was talking about this with some friends of mine before. I think sometimes the best teachers are the ones who are kind of informal with the students, who kind of do treat them as an equal. And what that means is like just, I don't know, casually swearing a little bit, or like, just kind of like talking to them as if they're human beings rather than this kind of dynamic of, I am Mr. Blank and you are a student and this is our dynamic and I'm above you and things like that.
well, it's so interesting you say that, right? Because that also perpetuates a certain propaganda that learning only happens one way.
Yeah.
It only happens from lower to top, where and that's false. We can
In
learn
reality,
from
everyone learns from everyone.
everyone, learn from everyone. It's such a man. The propaganda is insane, and it's like because we what you're saying is absolutely correct. Only recently, like I'm due because I have to get jobs while I'm here, and I'm like interview one of my cousins. She's like I think 20, but she's a software engineer, and I was talking to her about this opportunity, and like I ended up asking her some questions. She's 6 years younger than me, you know what I mean? But she gave me fantastic insight.
Yeah.
And it's like as a society, I kind of had to pinpoint it because it's not something I often do. But I was like, as a society, this isn't something that even exists. It's not commonplace for like an older person to like go to a younger person and ask them your opinion. When it's
Yeah.
like it's like a cheat code.
Yeah.
You're like more open, you're more in a lot of cases they have more insight into like what's going and it's so funny the propaganda like on like different levels but yeah that's like something obviously I think is very strong in me and it's something I'm unapologetically going to attack the education
Mhm.
system because I think it has the power to change the world. It's this thing that has when we look at everything politics. I'm not a political person because I feel like every single thing, not every single thing, but a lot of things is symptoms. We're attacking the symptoms. Really, when a lot of the things are propaganda, things we've been taught younger, not how
Yeah.
to communicate. We haven't been taught how to communicate, how to empathize, how to, emotionally regulate, how to think, how to question things. And these are the things that leads to fucking Trump being president because we
Right.
haven't educated people on like how to actually compose yourself as a human being. What is a good person? What should we strive to? It's like polarized when in reality, like we're all the same people. I feel fear, you feel fear. I know what sadness is, you know what sadness is. We're
Right.
literally the same people, but like we've been fooled to think that, oh, we're enemies. It's with school. We haven't
Yeah.
been taught these things in school. You can change the world if you change the education system. So it infuriates me that it's just being wasted. Look, I'm an optimist, so I'm going to say, okay, it's good for some things, but there's so many. It's still there's so much untapped power. I feel like the education system hasn't tapped into to change society.
I agree. Yeah, the other thing too that you just kind of briefly touched on there that I'm interested too is like also the kind of weird societal regulation of emotions because like I think with misery we always tend to kind of quantify misery. It's always like, well, you can't be sad about this because this person down the road like mother died and they have it worse than you. But like you wouldn't do that with like happiness. You wouldn't be like, well, you can't be happy because that guy won the lotto, you know?
Yeah, it's oh dude, I as a society like how like that in itself is like how far are we away from like habit man like because my cousin recently passed away, right? Love her to bits, and she changed my life for sure. And even it's funny like when she would pass away, closer to when she passed away, people would ask me like how I was, and it's so quick where you can say I'm fine, right? But what does that do for society, right? Because then all we're doing is perpetuating not being able to communicate something we all go through, loss. And
Mhm.
what's more human than this? Able to say, no, I'm actually, this happened to me. This is sad. It's a weird one, and it's been so interesting to observe like how different people react to it, how different institutions react to it in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
love that. I actually am quite fascinated by how different cultures and different religions and all these things like process death and their kind of opinions on death. I find it, but then also, but that leaks down to an individual level too. I think like you can say, well, the kind of Irish response to death is this, the German response to death is this, the Chinese response to death is this, or whatever. But it's like, I don't know. I mean, like people are different. People are individuals, autonomous beings too. So, you know,
So fucking well. Yeah, man, that's so well said. And that's something that, you know, why haven't we like in school, this is maybe utopian thinking, but why is it utopian? It's like, why haven't we been taught about like how to deal with grief or how to communicate these things? Like
yeah,
I'm an expressive person, so it's very hard for me to pretend, right? But there are people who are going through certain things and they don't know how to express. They haven't been empowered how to express. And one thing I know for human beings is that no matter what, artists or not, you're not supposed to keep that stuff in. You have
no,
to find a way to get it out.
yeah.
Um, and it's funny, like my music, because I was heavily inspired by rap, right? And
Hmm.
I think I've become is this like ironic to say? I've slightly become more humble as as time has progressed. Um, because I grew up really rappy. I think now I've kind of like leveled out a bit. So when I put songs out like Worse or like Yesterday, I think people tend to be surprised by that. But I think it's because I don't want to ever put up an illusion that like any human doesn't experience sadness or doesn't experience fucking loss or doesn't experience heartbreak. That is a fundamental thing. No matter the fact that I'm like super expressive and super like upbeat and stuff, that's universal. That's not going to change. And I really want to normalize that. It's like dudes have to be like, oh, fuck all that, man. Like, yes, I'm
Yeah.
that as well. Like, I still cry, I still feel sadness, and I definitely wanted the people to listen to my music to know to get that early. It was also a mission for us to get as many different types of genres and emotions out there early so people know that this is not like the typical facade or like we're trying to like tailor it to no. The emotional range has to be there as humans as well. You know, it all
Absolutely.
we're humans first.
Right, man. You've been very gracious for your time. I'll ask you, I think, four quick questions, and I'll let you get on with your day. One thing I wanted to ask, and this is kind of a random one, but for the cover for your new single, "Worse," was that the IFI that was taken, or because it looks like
But well said. Yeah.
it?
I need to shout them out. I need to shout them out. I haven't done it yet, but we have a few more
That's
bits
just
to do.
my like random observation. I was like, shit, I know that place.
That's fucking great, great eye. That's great eye. Yeah,
I
it's
think the
I
only place that'd be more distinctive would be, you know, that Scream One in the lighthouse, like all the different colored seats.
yeah, that was actually where we wanted to shoot initially, but George, the director, recommended the IFI. But yeah, great eye. Shout out to IFI. They were incredibly gracious with that space.
Is that your
And
cinematic kind of love coming out into in terms of like a little tribute, or was it just kind of like that was just what made sense logistically for a photo shoot?
no, both.
Yeah,
No. That was the cinematic intention there. And also because one definitely the foundation was the cinematic intention. And then also, one of the emotions that we wanted to convey in Worse was the sense of loneliness, of self-isolation after a breakup. Um, and an empty watching the cinema by myself was kind of watching a movie by myself in an empty cinema was kind of like to emphasize, okay, I'm lonely here. Now I'm watching movies, not just without her, but also by myself. And just kind of to say that because that's how I react to that. That's kind of what the song is about. How am I worse after a breakup? Some people go on a tear, they start sleeping with other people. Some people fucking start binge drinking. Some people, drink, do drugs. For me, I would probably just isolate myself, if that makes sense, or just like not let anyone near me. So that was the cinema. And obviously I love film, so it just worked out. At IFI were super great. It's funny, when the idea was there, the people on the team were like, how are we gonna get the cinema? But the IFI let us use the space, and they were absolutely lovely, like incredibly amazing. So again, it's
that's the
kind
good
of
thing about like independent kind of art too, because we're talking about kind of the collaboration between multimedia artists like yourself, like producers, promoters, all these things that are very, very important too. But I think also people need to kind of rely on the institutions too, that it is people like yourself and it is people who are artistically inclined who are giving these places business too. And I think and I think places like the IFI and the Lighthouse and a lot of these institutions, a lot of the music venues, the independent music venues, are all like great avenues that people should and great resources that people should try and utilize if they can, you know?
You're smart as fuck for saying that. You're smart as fuck for saying that because it's a recurring theme of this conversation. It's kind of like which we both experience. It's kind of like falling and the net will appear. You know, I didn't know how it was going to be done in the cinema. I thought we were actually just going to run after in between shoots,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like in between films. But after talking to them, like yeah, they were like, and that's the beauty of it. I just it's that resourcefulness, and that open mindedness to be like, why not? It's a collaborative effort. What you're saying, I never even thought about it. It's cyclical. You know what I mean? We go there, we watch movies, we make stuff. So yeah, that was one that I'm really glad because we also shot in like Temple Bar. We also shot in like iconic places in Dublin, which was nice, poetic for the last Dublin shoot. You have a great eye to know as you're the first person.
There's a book actually I wanted to recommend to you. I don't know if
That's having
you've
that, guys.
There's a book I wanted to recommend to you based on what you're saying. I think you'd probably like it. It's called A Cinema of Loneliness by Robert Philip Kolker. If you ever check that out, it's just kind of observing a lot of the films from kind of like 1970s
Speaking of
kind of
book,
new Hollywood thing, like Taxi Driver and stuff. And it's just about like again cinema, how it kind of portrays the feeling of loneliness. I think it might be of interest based on kind of what you're saying. Um, the other thing I wanted to ask too is we were talking about kind of the randomness of the world and kind of like relating to it. Obviously, you mentioned earlier like Trump got in recently. We didn't know what was on the cards. That vote could have went either way. Does that kind of like change plans for you too, based on like who's actually the president of the country? Or again, are you kind of like, I know you say you're not political, but obviously, I mean, politics, who is in power does kind of affect our lives. Does anything like that kind of like make you rethink plans, or are you just going to go, no, I'm committed to this, and whoever's in power, whatever they do, we'll find a workaround.
absolutely fucking not. It absolutely fucking not. It's funny because I flew here the day I think he was announced, or 2 days, no, 2 days after that was announced. I thought because I'm like quite optimistic that I was like, oh, I'm going to be in America for the first female president. Didn't
Hmm.
happen. After that, I was like, I don't care. See, for me, my mentality and my belief, whatever is going to happen in terms of this journey I'm on and the journey I'm with people, nothing is going to stop that. You know what I mean? Because even being here, man, like, you know what's funny, dude? I hope to like write more and like put more stuff out. As I was applying for this visa, I got a email, right? Because there was a logistical problem for me applying for this visa simply because I was born in Nigeria. So I'm Irish, right? I'm Nigerian Irish. I have a Nigerian passport and an Irish passport.
Right.
I got an email because there was something that couldn't work. I was getting an error when I was trying to make a payment. Eventually, eventually I found out because if you're from like four countries in the world, you have to pay a different way. You have to go through different ways, right? So I conveyed this to my sponsors who are supposed to be like the information database for this sponsorship. They're supposed to have everything, but they didn't know what was happening, right? And I have an email from this is in writing that says, sorry, Jesse, for this. You are the first person born in Nigeria to apply for this visa. So right now, but I'm still here, but I'm here now. Just you sound what I
Yeah,
mean.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So I kind of have it in my brain. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. You know what I mean? If I wasn't supposed to be here, I wouldn't be here. Fuck Trump. You know what I mean? I don't really care. I'm not really. This is the most political I've ever spoken. I'm kind of like I found this new word recently called transcendentalist. It's
Hmm.
like I don't. I'm more so thinking about bigger stuff. Transcend all that fucking shit. You know what I mean? Um, and I'm also kind of like a spiritual person and like a faithful person, I would say. Whatever happens is gonna happen. So when Trump became president, I was like, oh, that's shit. And like logistically, he actually does make things a bit more difficult for people immigrating into the country. But I'm here now, so like fuck Trump, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Try and get me.
Exactly. I'm here now, mate.
Well, I guess like
Exactly.
that's the good thing about kind of living in sort of a federalist country. Like, New York will have some protections. I think everything will be
Exactly.
okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
One other thing I want to ask is about your kind of multimedia. You were mentioning like, multimedia interests. Generally now, what's kind of inspiring you musically, in terms of film, in terms of writing? What are you kind of reading, listening to, watching?
Great question, man. Great question. And this is by far the best interview I've ever had. And it's probably because you're an active artist as well, and you're just a cool person, and we probably have a lot of similarities. This is an amazing man, and I appreciate it so much. Um,
Thank you.
so what right now, that's a great question, right? So right now I'm currently reading, see, because I'm actually quite a curious person intellectually. I can tell you're the same. You obviously like to read.
Mhm.
Um,
I don't
it
get to
all
do it as much anymore as I'd like
yeah.
to.
Right
It's
now
very
because
time consuming, but I like it.
I especially now, but I don't have right now. I just moved here, so I haven't started my new job yet. So I'm like, I think I'm trying to read as much as I can because I know when I start work, it won't be the same.
Yeah.
In terms of what I'm reading, when I'm reading two books right now, and I'm quite like a curious person psychologically. I like ideas. I like smart people. Um, so it alternates. Sometimes I read novels, sometimes I read more like practical books. I'm reading this book called Where Good Ideas Come From,
Mhm.
and then I'm reading another book called Nature by it's a collection of Ralph Waldo Emerson's book. But in terms of writings, but in terms of where I get inspiration from, it's a great one. I think I would like to say I want to a lot more from my stories because I do not convey my stories as much in my art as I should. I need to because stories are really important. But a lot of from reading films, I try to watch a film like every week. I watch a lot of stuff and consume a lot of stuff. So I'm constantly consuming stuff. Reading, and watching films. Now I'm trying to like now that I'm here. And you said multimedia, which is a great word, actually, which I'm going to start using more because that's kind of what I want us to do in terms of like the mission.
Yeah.
Because obviously I
I
love
think more people have to start realizing they're multimedia artists too. A lot of people
what
just see themselves as musicians or they see themselves as like whatever discipline they're in. It's like, well, no, no, everyone's doing a little bit of everything. Everyone's, like you're doing image editing, you're doing PR, you're doing like a lot of things, you're doing
Mm.
writing, press write-ups. Everyone's kind of a multimedia artist, I think, nowadays.
So no, it's so I love these conversations because now as soon as you said that I've hooked onto it and it's gonna be with me going forward because
Yeah.
it's timely with where
It's succinct, yeah.
yeah it's very very especially with where we are right now in terms of just how much we've developed this year. Like I said, at the end of the year, we want to do. I started a podcast like 2 years ago, and it was brief. It was like a series right before I started putting that music, and I kind of wanted it to be there. So when I started putting that music, people can kind of like look at the mentality behind it, because yeah, they're like I like obviously during this conversation, I realized the plan worked. You know what I mean? Like to a certain extent, to a certain
Hmm.
degree. And there's some of that is documented in the podcast, but also this year at the end of the year, like you've now asked me, we've had a conversation about the visa, the practical aspects. I also want to actually just have because there's a certain mystique around like artists, right? How to do things, how do people do things, and
Yeah.
like that's I don't know. Maybe I think I want to break that down to like it to like I want to break that down to the very bottom level because like how do people like how are you doing this? I would love to know like how and it's changing now. People are becoming more transparent in terms of what they put out. And that's also something I want to show people, just the people around me, because people are curious. How did you move here? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There will be like an aspect of the multimedia. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. It makes so much more sense. And I think also it makes me be less romantic with what I'm doing. Because like as artists, I feel like for me, it's sort of I just want to make art. I just want to make my art and put it out.
Yeah.
But but being honest, what you're saying, it's true. There is, the marketing, there is the PR, there is the images, there is the film.
Everyone
Um,
wears lots of different hats.
Absolutely. And as I'm really realizing that now recently. So I think now to articulate it just as you said, I think will help us be beneficial and actually be like productive, and treat it the way we're supposed to treat it. Because for me, like I would always disregard the PR aspect. I would always disregard the other aspects. I'm just like, I just want to make my art.
Yeah.
Um,
But you're working with Liam now, obviously. I mean, like you kind of like do you delegate responsibilities or do you kind of like what's that kind of like relationship like in terms of like the working relationship between you two?
Liam is an angel person, man. I met Liam in when I was working in the phone shop. This is when I was still in college, and we just clicked immediately because he was like we were listening to the same type of music, and I think he could tell. At that point, I had started like, at that point I'd done a few things already. Like I'd sold t-shirts and I'd done events and I had worked with artists. And then I also love music. So he was obviously just a switched on person when we met. He was like, fuck, how did you and also I remember it was Christmas time and I really wanted to buy a car. And my job was like doing a incentive for if you did like the most sales, like you would
Right. Yeah,
money.
commissions, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like so fucking driven. And he saw that as well. And he also helped me. So I think we clicked on that regard. And then it was really like just a gradual process of becoming like best friends and being like, okay, we're switched on. Him kind of like giving me some advice, some guidance, because he's like really strict. The beautiful thing about Liam is that he is he appreciates the art. He's like a creative person as well, but he's
Hmm.
also I think more he's also really switched on in terms of the organization aspect of it, the strategy aspect, the multimedia. He probably has the more multimedia aspect in his brain. So he's amazing because I think a lot, right? I think a lot. I'm like a big picture thinker. One of my favorite things about Liam is that he's just like one step at a time, dude. Let's do this one step, get forwards. And as a friend, he's just like probably one of the most impactful people in my life. Another thing that I will say, I'll say it again when we do our yearly roundup. The importance of just having one person to work with is can be profound. It can be profound from having no one to just one person to be like, oh no, this is great to share the vision. Liam saw the vision before there was anything out, anything, and not just he saw the vision. He was like, it's so obvious that like what you're doing has a place. You know what I mean? Which I felt as well. Now people are he saw that before District saw that before anyone saw that. So that's profound. Um, because
Is that kind of flattering to have, sorry not to interrupt you, but is that kind of flattering to have someone who's like not only like, oh yeah, your music's good and encouragement that, but to actually kind of go, I believe in you so much that I'm actually going to kind of like take the journey with you. I'm actually going to dedicate my time and my life and actually kind of help you kind of make this bigger.
oh, oh my God, dude. It is an honor and it's absolutely profound the impact it has. I'm a driven person as it is, you know what I mean? But just the impact one person, this is what I mean, like because it was tough. Now I have people, it's starting to form a team. It's a team is starting to form. But for a lot of the time, that was the biggest obstacle. That was the thing that stopped me from going to A to B.
Yeah.
Things started moving forward once George came on board, Liam came on board. George is the person who films. Zach, and now I have the team. And Liam, having people like that, flattering is a fun way to put it. It's what it does for me is it puts the fire in my belly even more. It's like we have to what Liam has done. Oh my God, man. It's insane. It's also funny though, because I also managed an artist before, which is funny. But but I never thought about it from like from his perspective. But it's a massive commitment to make. It's a massive commitment to make. I'm also slightly arrogant, so I'm gonna be like, it's a smart. I think I think it's I'm also betting on myself massively. Do you know what I mean? But for him too, I can't. Liam, us meeting. You know what's crazy, dude? I moved to New York, right? I didn't plan on living here. I'm currently in Queens. I landed here by accident. I landed in a random apartment. Liam is 15 minutes walk away from me. Pure sheer coincidence. It's like the like literally like the forces are conspiring to like I'm actually gonna go walk over to his later and pick up something. But yeah, I feel like we're super aligned, super clear. Just keep going and people will eventually like the people will someone will show, I feel. So yeah, shout out to Liam.
All right, the final thing I'll ask, I'll make it a compound question, okay? First thing I was gonna say is, now that you're in New York, I'm assuming you're like looking for like live opportunities. Are you eyeing up certain venues, certain promoters, certain nights, anything that you're kind of thinking like I would be a good fit for that? And the other thing I was gonna ask now is, you're kind of mentioning the team, and obviously like as you were doing stuff in Dublin, I assume people were kind of more kind of together. Now that things are in different parts of the world, how is that going to move forward? Are you trying to accrue new people, or are you guys trying to make it work remotely?
Mm. Uh, Great question. So in terms of looking at opportunities here, that's going to be Liam's kind of coverage. So he's going to like I'm going to do a bit as well, but like he's probably going to be the person to look at opportunities. He's also been here longer. Um, he's been here for I think half a year, so he knows a bit more about spots and stuff like that. So in terms of outreach and identifying opportunities, he's probably going to take the lead on that. I'll probably if there's anything else, like there are some things I see that I send to him but he's usually the person that like identifies those kind of things, collaborative. Um, and in terms of working with people, Liam is probably he's my partner. We're partners in this. He's my core partner. In terms of producers, Zach, who is my longest collaborator, actually moved to LA in August. So that's definitely something that can be preserved and continue on. My other producer, Connor, is in Dublin. I'm gonna call him out. I'm gonna call him out. Like I don't know where this is gonna go, but he needs a bit more of a presence to be productive. So I don't know how that's gonna go. I do have one or two filmmakers who also by coincidence, Aaron, live 5 minutes walk from my
It's
house.
all coming together. It's all
Look, it's
it's that
fucking
serendipity you were talking about, man.
yeah, oh man, if I tell you the shit that's been happening since I moved here, it's like the universe has been like, "Oh, Jesse, you took a risk. Okay, let me show you like what actually happens." And it's interesting because in my mind, like I grew up, relatively modest environment. And so there's a certain limit as to what like it's there in my brain. I can feel it in my brain. It's like there's a certain limit to like what I think is possible or like what I think you deserved in a certain sense. But I'm like,
Do you think
no,
that's a good or a bad thing for what you're doing?
it's a bad thing. It's
Yeah.
it's an absolute bad thing. There has to be no ceilings because like it's also paradoxical because I believe that I can I don't there's no ceiling on my mind in terms of what I'm striving for. But then it's like good things start happening and you're like you start feeling a bit weird. You start feeling a bit like what this is a bit too good to be true. You start questioning it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Which is
absolutely.
it's contradictory. So I kind of need to like be like, okay, good things are happening. This is whatever happening, being serendipity, just be like, okay, continue on. Because coming here
Yeah.
was a massive leap of faith. The
Because
fact that
because being a creative is sort of like being perpetually a freelancer, I think.
yeah,
So you constantly
absolutely.
have to sell yourself, and it's weird because you're constantly having to encourage other people that you're worth your time, that you're worth the coverage, you're worth listening to, coming to see live, and all that. But at the same time, it's like if you don't like truly believe that in yourself, when you do, because I totally relate to it. Like I'm trying to get my stuff out there, and you just kind of I think get numb to the rejection. You're like, okay, whatever, it's a rejection. But then like when someone goes, yeah, actually, we're going to take a chance, and you're like, Jesus Christ, really? You are.
Right, right,
It's
right.
weird.
And
It's like
it's
even
a
just applying for like regular jobs, like even just like any retail job or any just kind of like service industry job. I think sometimes people get so numb to that rejection, and I think we were talking kind of about how some of the stuff kind of like affects your personal self of sense. I think some people can get so beaten down by job searching, for example, that it's
Uh-huh.
like they start to kind of like doubt themselves as a person.
Oh,
Even
dude.
it's a weird thing. It's like, dude, you're applying. I'm not trying to be flippant here, but it's like you're applying for like a minimum wage job. Like you're better than that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Um,
you
um,
deserve
um,
a living wage.
it's an interesting balance right now, and like mental kind of like alter vacillation that I'm experiencing now, because I'm obviously right now I'm freelance, you know what I mean? I'm kind of like
Mm,
start from scratch again. And although now though I feel like I've gotten to a point where I'm not too perturbed by, although I feel them, but they don't sink me as deep. Um,
yeah,
but even though it's still there, it's a weird one. It's a weird one, and again, it's one of the things that I want to continue to break, because I like to read books like some psychological books, and it's called Breaking the Upper Limit. It's like we subconsciously put limits on put limits on ourselves in terms of how successful we can be, how happy we can be, because we don't want to get hired, because then we'll be afraid of loss, or we'll be afraid of it like going away or stuff like that. So
yeah,
we
absolutely.
we like unconsciously put limitations on ourselves. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And it's a frightening but powerful thing to bring awareness to, and something I'm kind of experiencing now, like especially because I'm an aspirational person. I want to succeed. I want to be able to help people. I can't be like afraid to like say yes, to say take an opportunity, to receive the things that like life, because bro, it's the serendipity that has happened here. As I talk about it, it's almost like story like. It doesn't make
yeah,
sense. It
yeah.
doesn't make sense. Like my dude, I told you I'm reading Ralph Waldo Emerson, right? I went to a random bookshop in New York like 3 days ago, picked up a book. It had writing in it, so I loved it, right? I love the fact that there was like writing in it. 2 days later, I find a fucking check in the book, dude. There's like such weird, random shit going on
Was
ever
it
since.
was it blank?
No, it was actually 40 years old, and it was only
Okay.
for $50. But that in itself is like metaphorical. I don't know what the metaphor is, but it's a weird piece of like, it's a weird thing. I need to go actually find the guy, because his address is in the book. But
Okay.
like, um, we some life will encourage you, and like it's very tempting to like sabotage yourself because it's like uncharted territory, and you want to like retreat back into like a comfortable place,
Yeah.
you know. But like
I
fuck
totally
that.
I, I totally understand that. Even if like the familiar is unsatisfactory, it's still familiar. Yeah.
Profound. It's a profound piece of awareness, dude.
Yeah.
It's a profound piece of awareness, and I'm curious in these things, but I definitely felt a bit of it like when it's happening. But I definitely know whatever is happening now, I feel like I feel super aligned. Like my feet are firmly on the soil of the ground. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like even having this conversation with you, it's been a great opportunity to speak with somebody that I can learn from, and also that can understand, this language and this journey of being a
Oh, dude, I
fucking.
think it's totally universal. Like I really do. I think like I don't know, maybe it is just because I'm speaking to so many artists like through doing this and through doing my other work, but I don't know, I feel like a lot of people's like stories are kind of like really relatable. Maybe it's just human empathy. I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to share and have conversations, and like, have that level of sincerity. Like oftentimes people say to me like, oh, you shouldn't say this, or you shouldn't say this. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like we're all
Mm,
like, I mean, this is just a shared thing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
We're all experiencing this together, and it should all be shared, and that's how we learn from each other. That's how we can encourage each other. That's how
Yeah.
we learn.
I think sometimes there's a bit of worry perhaps in the Irish setting that because like everyone's so familiar that people are going to listen to your lyrics and critique it on a level that you perhaps aren't like totally open to, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Going
get what I'm
away.
saying?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's that too. There's that too. But I think I'm gonna keep my head in the sand when it comes to that. That's also funny. Like when people, that's when I know I would have when I'll be successful. When I start getting like people shitting on me, like that's when I'll really feel, because right now I don't have none of that, because that means I'm not big enough yet, because everyone around me is like my friends and acquaintances. But like when I get super big, where people think that like they can like go at me, then I'm like, okay, cool. That's nice.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah, I think like sometimes like when you're like from the perspective of like say music journalism that's trying to be encouraging to up and coming artists, there is a bit of a reluctance, and I get it to shit on people. That's why actually with my website, I elect not to do like reviews, because I'm like, well, I don't want my personal bias coming into things. I'll interview artists, hear their stories, and kind of whatever I think of their music and art. And to be fair, like I like pretty much everything I've heard. Like I've never really heard I haven't had too many interviews, thankfully, where I didn't like the artist's music. I think it happened one time where I didn't like their lyrics because I felt they were a bit perfunctory or something, but that was it. Like generally speaking, like I kind of I think again it's actually made me perhaps more of a receptive listener, a bit more open beyond my own.
Mm,
Like, cause
mm.
cause dude, I always think like I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm a very open-minded person, but then like you kind of realize the
Yeah, yeah,
limitations of what you're listening to, in terms of like what I'd actually just put on for amusement and leisure.
absolutely.
And it kind of makes you a little open, and you're kind of like, ooh, because like not only are you listening to this artist, you're listening to their inspirations, and you're listening because you're trying to get a
Actually,
bigger picture of who they are. So it just opens you up to more music, and then it kind of makes your palette a little diverse.
that's cool as fuck,
Yeah.
man.
So,
I never thought about
if you want good music recommendations, get into music journalism. That's my advice.
that. Yeah, but you guys get all the great stuff actually.
Yeah, well, actually, it's interesting too, because like, sometimes I'll just like, it's weird. It's like, doing freelance. Like one time, it was Halloween night, right? And I got asked that night, "Hey, could you go into town tomorrow and meet with this band, who are in town?" It was for the Daily Star, the newspaper.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, because I was like looking forward to a day off, like Halloween, I'm gonna enjoy it. And then I was like, oh shit. So I just spent Halloween just kind of like researching the shit out of this band and kind of listening to all their music and stuff. But it's kind of cool. It's like a crash course, I feel like. It's kind of like if I just had this music at my leisure, I probably wouldn't get around to it. And it was an artist I knew. It was like a famous artist, but it was like, you know, I probably just would have sat on this, and their music was really good. But then the other issue too, though, is that's like, you're constantly in flux of like listening to new things in order to be able to kind of keep up with the artists you're interviewing. So sometimes like I don't get to keep up with other artists as much as I like. So that's kind of the I guess the other end of it too. Is that it's
So
like there's some artists
like
I'd like
also
to,
like yeah.
yeah. And then when I do get time to just listen to music for pleasure, I tend to just kind of like stick again with stuff that I kind of know I like, because it's like, it's just comforting just to unwind.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because I think like new music, even if it's an artist you're familiar with, should challenge. And if I'm going to listen to new music, even if it's by a familiar artist, I kind of want to give it the actual time and dedication, where I find like with music I'm familiar with, I can just kind of stick it on and just sing
Oh,
along, and it's
no,
just like relaxing.
see, that's a conversation, right? That I'm seeing being spoken about more and more. Like Tyler just put out his
Yeah.
music on there because he was like, people aren't processing it properly. You see at the start, like there's different branding and there's different like campaigns that I try to like associate with what we're doing. And I would like to say that people are now getting sick of, and this is not a hypothetical. You can see it in the numbers of hip hop, for example, the genre that I be fundamentally in. The numbers are down. People are just now sick of the bullshit. You're sick of
Hmm.
it, low quality music. And I think
Yeah.
people do want to have music. I actually think people do want music that they can engage in and
Yeah.
have an engaged listening experience in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and it's depicted by in my main genre, hip hop and rap. Kendrick is still the best probably rapper now. You
Yeah,
know what I
I'm
mean?
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. His
Which is
last
so
album, for example, was like really fucking challenging. Like, there's that bit where it's like it's the argument. Remember that bit? I was like, oh my fucking
yes,
god, this is
yes.
like too. I almost
Yeah.
feel like I almost feel like I'm listening in on my neighbors or something.
You know what I mean? So that was also a vision, me and the team, that I always try to beat into the team, which I think hopefully will flower. That create fuck everything else. Substance will always be the thing. It
Yeah,
will always be
absolutely.
the thing. It will always be the thing. That some things are just absolutes. Like it's funny. The most impactful artist now, Tyler. Now, I think this recent album is now sent him even higher because
Hmm.
he's fundamentally cares about the art. He cares. It's a
Yeah,
holistic approach. You know what I mean? Same with Kendrick. He care about the art. holistic approach, engaging work. J. Cole, he'd still be there. Drake, who is like, I like Drake. It's indisputable what he's done, but it's funny that now he's starting to slip away because he didn't evolve. He didn't evolve.
Mm.
He didn't he 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 was going with the trends. And yes, it was successful, but obviously I think that's why the Kendrick Drake thing was so I could have written a thesis on this. I love hip hop and I
Please
love
do. We'll publish it.
I feel like even if you take two of those rappers out, it was like a war between substance and like trends or like I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
agree. That's a good thing. Yeah.
That's how I looked at it. And it was beautiful to see like not only did Substance win, it was an unequivocal Substance not only just won being substantial, it also won in being catchy as well. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And there was no room for debate. And that was like such a pivotal thing for me to see because it was always how I felt. Like when
Yeah.
people are like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? I'm like, that's not the kind of artist I want to be. Like, I actually want to be here, like in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time. I'm not doing this because I want like TikTok to be popular on TikTok now or to like be popular on Instagram now. I want to be here in 10 years. I want to be here
Yeah.
in for a long time. And I want the
And I think
people.
also the recent, again, talking about how trends change, just like like something like Twitter, for example. Like no one could predict what would have happened there, really. And it's like that's the same, but like I don't think Twitter is an exceptional place. It's like, that could happen with TikTok. That could happen with anything. Like a bad CEO, a bad manager coming in could, if you build your reputation purely on the success on a certain app or a certain website, it's like, well, yeah, but it just takes one shitty succession for that to all go away.
That's another fucking thing, right? That's another little thing that like on a practical level as well. Um, I need to find that's why kind of I have jessejune.com there because I want to like eventually
Yeah.
I want that to be the place because like if
It's also
Instagram
good just to have everything centralized like that too.
exactly right. Because the dependency on these things, like they are a great tool as well. I'm optimistic, so I'll also always keep the good parts, but the dependency on like one thing, nah,
Mm.
it's way.
Yeah, I think they're just an avenue to get your stuff seen, really. It's like everyone's on there, so if I post there, people will see it. I think that's really the thing. It shouldn't be I think it should be a lead pad for your where people can actually find your stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, perfect, man. We've talked a lot, so I
We
guess the
talked
final
for
thing I'll just
2 hours, bro. Best interview
That's
I've ever done.
that's nothing to me, man. I do these like all the time.
Oh,
It's just, but that's the good thing. That's what I said. Like if I when I was starting this website, man, if I had like a 2 hour interview, I'd be like so overwhelmed in terms of editing it for the article. But like now, I'm just like I know my structure, I know my thing. It's funny that like I write these like this is an interview I did. It's just like I'm just like taking like timestamps and stuff, and it's
oh
just like
wow.
my stuff probably just seems if you're like reading this, I'm like old school pen and paper. I just prefer it. I think it's but whatever. But I find like if people were to find this notebook, it would just feel like encrypted nonsense.
That's the point, though.
But like it makes sense to me. This isn't
The
for
mind of a
people.
genius, mate. The mind of a fucking genius, mate. I love that. And I love the fact you said old school pen and paper. Fuck me, man. I love
Oh,
it.
dude, that's what you're saying when your phone's lost. It's like, that's what you have. It's just, I don't know, man. I just think it's the clearest expression of getting your ideas down. It's just to write it down. You don't have to worry about spell check or your grammar being correct
Yeah,
or anything. You just kind of like write it down and it doesn't have to
proper.
make sense to anyone else. You will edit, you will clean it up, and then you'll put it out for the world. But that's just like, I don't know, man. Like, a lot of people take notes on their phone. That's fine. I just can't. I find it. I've done it before, like in situations, like if I'm just taking notes real quick, but I just find typing is not as quick as just writing things down.
Sure, yeah. I completely agree, actually. I completely agree. And it's funny you say old school because like I remember hearing something that people aren't writing anymore. I was talking to my mates
Mm.
recently. They were like, when would you actually have to write like
And people aren't
nowadays?
reading anymore either. I was talking to an old lecturer. I just bumped into him recently. He was talking. He's got planning on retiring soon, even though he's quite young. And he was saying like a big part of it is like people just aren't reading anymore, and it's hard to kind of dictate a curriculum around that.
That's terrifying to hear. See, this is see because I'm quite insular in my bubble and I read a lot.
Yeah.
So that's terrifying to hear. I
Yeah.
don't like that actually. But Like it's one of the things that's fundamental for me, and I always talk about it on my Instagram. Like it's because it's one of those things again. It's an insight into like because when people say, "Okay, Jesse, how you do this or how do you do this?" It's like I read a
Yeah.
lot, you know, and
And even if you just read just for pleasure, I mean, you pick up things subconsciously, like how to structure a sentence, how to write prose, you know?
absolutely it's and the thing about it is it's an irreplaceable skill.
Yeah.
There's some things in life, irreplaceable activities. Traveling is one, reading is one that you cannot replicate the advantages of it doing something
No.
else. And yeah, it's now that I have a bit more time, that's actually what I think I've been doing the most of because like you say, it's hard when like I get into a job and so hearing people don't read, man, what's that going to do to society, man?
Yeah. Well, like, a lot of people do audiobooks now, which I think is fine, but I just can't concentrate. Like I always lose
Different,
focus.
fucking different.
Yeah.
Reading and listening are different things.
I
Stop
think,
telling me.
dude, I think a lot of it is just time. Like I would love to read more, but it's just literally like, by the time I get through doing stuff, I'm just exhausted. And then I'm like, reading is, it's like I want to actually dedicate and sit down and enjoy my time with a book. I don't want to just like feel obliged to read. I want it to be something that's still a pleasurable activity for me, you know?
Yeah.
But I think also like just quick release things like video games, like, and I'm not being like an old school boomer or anything like that, complaining about this shit, like, because I do it too. But like, just playing video games or looking at YouTube videos or whatever, I mean, like, there is just kind of like it takes no effort. You just relax and you kick back, and it's less time consuming. But even then, like, for example, like, it's a bit too late to read. I'll tell you what, I'll just kick on the game or something, and I'll just be like,
That's,
end up staying up for like 3 hours. It's like I
that's
could have been reading, I could have been like, bettering my brain a little bit.
it's so funny. Society is set up in this way, man. Like I have a lot of energy, but even when I was working, because I just left my job before I came here, it's like,
Mhm.
and I work from home, man. And it's like even after a day of like working, you're just fucking tired. It's set up. You're not set
Absolutely.
up. You're set up to like, and man, let's not get
And then
into
also well, actually, you were saying yours was quite close, but also commuting is also, it just exhausts you, you know?
that's why I took that job because of the
Mm.
commute. And I didn't want to commute. Like even with my last job, I only applied for remote gigs. I'm only applying for like hybrid gigs because that commute, dude,
Yeah.
like we're
Dude, I think the genie's out of the bottle after COVID about that stuff. Everyone wants remote or, semi-remote. Like, I think people kind of realize, look, hey, I can do a lot of this stuff from home. I don't need to be like
revolutionary.
getting up really early just to travel into the office, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. COVID was obviously a tragedy, but that was a revolutionary realization that I'm glad we stumbled upon because it's like, wait, why like
Yeah.
what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how you know an idea is smart. Like it just changed instantly, like and
Yeah.
it massively like that's the default now, which is insane. Post COVID, that wasn't the thing, right?
No.
I mean,
No.
pre-COVID,
Yeah, I know what you meant. Yeah, pre-COVID. Yeah, I think some places did it, but it was kind of like, I think it was always like reserved for like higher ups, not for the plebs at the bottom.
yeah, man. You see, look, I like to be optimistic and say, okay, but at least we caught on to like the glaringly obvious
Yeah.
obvious things, like because
Like,
yeah, life is not meant to be lived fucking spending your entire day like it's a 9 to 5. It's not even a 9 to 5. It's like you wake up an
yeah.
hour, at least an hour before you even commute, and then you can, man.
Oh yeah, it's bollocks, man. And like it's like, you go into the office like, oh yeah, the manager isn't in today. It's like, oh, imagine if I could do that. Just like, yeah, I'm not going in today.
Yeah, man. Yeah, look, that's
Must be
what.
nice. All right, man. The final thing I'll just ask is there anything you'd like to add, anything you'd like to plug or anything before we wrap up? Obviously, the single's out now. What you got coming up and all that.
You know what, man? We've spoken so much and we've covered so much more ground than I ever thought we would cover.
You're not going to speak for the next week.
Yeah, like now, like now I'm gonna sit in this couch and stare at the ceiling for a bit, like and absorb because I have an interview for like 2 hours. That
Oh
was
shit.
that
Okay.
like a work interview.
You can just
Um,
pretend this is just like a therapy session, I guess. Like we got a lot
yeah,
off our minds.
I I needed it more than I thought than I even guessed. But I don't want to add anything because we've covered so much more than I thought, and I feel like we have a great grasp into like insight into what we're supposed to look into, what's happening, how I feel, the aspiration and the vision. I think the essence is always what is we're trying to convey, and I feel like this is you, by the way.
Yeah.
So you did a fucking great job, man. 2 hour interview.
You help along. You help
It's
along.
it's
You know,
it's
I'm
it's not it's gonna be
interviewers only as good as their subjects. Believe me, if you listen to my interviews, there are definitely times where they're not the strongest. I won't name names.
that's synergy then.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It is synergy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, smashing stuff, and hopefully, like, I would love to. I don't know how often, but maybe in a year's time or when
No,
there's something more,
absolutely.
more
You always have
profound.
an open invite here, man.
Yeah, man, because this one, yeah,
Actually, I
the
would like to catch up again and to kind of see like, so how has it been getting along? So,
yeah,
this
that
is
would
the
that would
start
be
of like
cool.
the new chapter of your life, and
That would be cool. Probably like June-ish. June is nice because we always do a huge campaign in June
cool.
because that's part of the name. So but I know for a fact we'll have a conversation again, and at the very least, just so we can catch up because and see where we're at and kind of pick our brains and laugh and we can exchange some pieces and bits.
Perfect. I'll keep the site going at least till June then.
You fucking better, man. I'll be snap. You better, man. Please do.
Yeah,
Please
no,
hang in there.
no,
Please hang.
it is great when like people kind of go, yeah, I actually really enjoy your site. I'm like, yes, makes it worth it because like it is just like a money sink, but I'm like, it's totally fine. Like I really am not doing this for revenue.
Legend, man, and that keeps you whole as a human being.
Yeah,
That keeps you whole as a human being.
perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Jesse, and enjoy the rest of
Pleasure,
your day and best of luck
pleasure.
with the interview and everything.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you so much. Can't say it enough, man.
Take care,
And we'll
man.
be. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.